There is a particular kind of exhaustion that has no clear source. You have said yes so many times that you can no longer remember the shape of your own no. You have smoothed over so many rooms, softened so many silences, agreed with so many people you privately disagreed with, that somewhere along the way, agreeableness stopped feeling like a choice and started feeling like a sentence you are quietly serving. Why does being good to everyone leave you feeling so often unseen by anyone? Why does the effort to be liked sometimes cost you the very thing it was meant to protect? Before we explore this together, subscribe to this channel where we uncover the hidden psychology behind everyday life. Picture a lantern, carefully wrapped in cloth. From across the room, it still gives off a soft, pleasant glow enough to make people comfortable, enough to make the space feel warm. But the cloth is not decoration. It is restraint. Whatever is burning underneath is dimmed on purpose, muffled just enough to be palatable, just enough to never disturb anyone standing nearby. What would happen, you might wonder, if the cloth were finally removed? Would the room even recognize the light it had been living beside all along? Carl Jung believed that every persona, the polished self we present to the world, is built partly to be presentable and partly to hide whatever might make us less acceptable if it were seen directly. What if the nice person is not simply kind, but a lantern wrapped in unusually thick cloth? Consider what niceness so often requires. It requires the swallowing of irritation. It requires agreement offered before agreement is actually felt. It requires the quiet erosion of a boundary over and over, in exchange for being thought of as easy, as agreeable, as no trouble at all. Where does all of that unexpressed friction go? Does it simply disappear, the way water is assumed to evaporate, or does it collect somewhere, patiently, waiting for a shape to finally take? Jung called the disowned, unacceptable parts of the self the shadow, not necessarily evil, but unclaimed, pushed below the surface because they were never welcome above it. And here is the uncomfortable question worth asking honestly. What if relentless niceness is not the absence of a shadow, but one of its most effective disguises? Think about the nice person who never raises their voice, yet somehow always gets their way through sighs, silences, and the subtle art of making others feel guilty for causing friction. Think about the endless favors that quietly become debts. The boundaries that were never stated but are furiously protected the moment they're crossed. Is that generosity? Or is it a kind of soft control, dressed carefully enough that even the person practicing it may not recognize what it actually is? But before this becomes a story about other people, ask the harder question. What have you swallowed, this week alone, in the name of being easy to be around? What discomfort have you buried so effectively that even you no longer notice you are carrying it? Alfred Adler believed that beneath much of human behavior lies a private, often unconscious need for significance, a way of mattering, of being necessary, of avoiding the quiet terror of being overlooked. Perhaps excessive niceness is not selflessness at all, but a strategy. If I am indispensable, if I am impossible to dislike, then I cannot be discarded. Is that truly kindness? Or is it a shadow wearing kindness as its safest possible mask? So why does this dark trait hide so well even from the person carrying it? Perhaps because admitting it would require confronting an uncomfortable possibility that some of what looks like virtue was actually born from fear. Picture, again, the bare tree standing through winter, its branches empty, its surface still. From a distance, it looks finished, depleted, without any hidden depth. But underground, where nothing can be observed, the roots continue widening in the dark, gathering strength for a spring the tree cannot yet see. Is what looks like emptiness always what it appears to be? Or can even an uncomfortable truth, once acknowledged, become the beginning of something stronger? This is the turn worth making gently here. Recognizing the resentment hiding beneath your own niceness is not a moral failure. It may in fact be the beginning of something Jung called individuation, the long, uneven work of becoming a complete person, rather than a curated performance built entirely for the comfort of others. Individuation rarely feels graceful while it is happening. It tends to feel, at first, like guilt for noticing your own anger. Only later does it begin to feel like freedom. So what do you do with anger you have spent years pretending not to have? This is where the observer becomes essential, the quiet witness inside you capable of noticing a feeling without either suppressing it or being ruled by it. Not the part of you that snaps unexpectedly at someone who did not deserve it. The resentment finally overflowing sideways. The part that can simply notice, calmly, I feel resentment here, and I have been calling it patience. Seneca wrote extensively about anger, warning that what is suppressed too long does not vanish, it hardens, and eventually surfaces in forms far less controlled than if it had been acknowledged honestly from the start. Can you feel irritation rising in a moment and simply observe it, rather than immediately smoothing it over with a smile that was never entirely true? Can you notice the cloth around the lantern, rather than pretending the light beneath it does not exist? And here is something worth noticing. If you are willing to look closely, this pattern has likely repeated itself many times before, in many different rooms with many different people. The same swallowed opinion, the same quiet erosion of a boundary, the same private resentment building beneath a face arranged carefully into agreement. Why does life seem to recreate this scenario again and again, with new characters but the same familiar ache? Jung believed that whatever remains unconscious in us does not disappear, it reappears, disguised as circumstance, as recurring situations, as the same lesson wearing a slightly different face each time it returns. Perhaps this is not simply about being nice to the people currently in your life. Perhaps it is the newest version of an older question you have not yet fully answered. Why did I learn so early that my own needs were only acceptable if they came wrapped in the needs of everyone else? Viktor Frankl, who studied meaning in circumstances few could imagine surviving, believed that between what happens to a person and how they respond, there exists a space narrow, but real, and entirely their own. You may not be able to undo years of practiced agreeableness overnight, but the space between noticing your own suppressed resentment and deciding, finally, to express a need honestly, that space belongs entirely to you. So what would it actually look like to grow past this, rather than simply perform kindness more convincingly? Not something dramatic, not a single confrontation that resolves everything at once. It might look like saying no to a small request and noticing with some surprise that the world does not end. It might look like choosing an honest disagreement over a comfortable, hollow agreement. It might look like sitting with someone's mild disappointment in you without immediately rushing to fix it. It might look like offering kindness because you actually feel it, rather than because withholding it feels unbearable. None of this arrives with fanfare. Jung once suggested that people will do almost anything to avoid meeting their own shadow directly, and if that is true, then simply admitting, quietly and honestly, that some of your kindness has been fear wearing a gentler name may already be a significant act of courage. Return, for a moment, to the lantern and the cloth wrapped carefully around it. Imagine loosening it slightly, not to blind the room, not to punish anyone standing nearby, but simply to let the light be seen as it actually is. Does that feel like danger? Or does it simply feel, for the first time in a long while, like honesty? And so we return to the question underneath all of this, beneath every swallowed opinion, every favor quietly resented, every smile that concealed something less comfortable underneath it. What actually remains of you once the performance of endless agreeableness is finally set down? What remains when you no longer need everyone to think well of you in order to feel, privately, that you are enough? Jung offered an answer that has outlasted him by nearly a century, Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. Perhaps the kindest thing you can offer the people around you is not another swallowed opinion, but an honest one. Perhaps real generosity begins only after the lantern has been unwrapped, and the light, however uncomfortable at first, is finally allowed to be seen. If this resonated, subscribe to this channel and join us as we keep uncovering these hidden truths. What is one boundary you've been afraid to set? And what would it feel like to finally set it? Write it in the comments below, and let the cloth, wherever you have been wearing it, finally fall away.